Howdy, friends, and welcome to The Story Field. This is a podcast where we talk about business, faith, and life in general.
Okay, so here's the deal. We want you to be encouraged. We want you living in hope. This life we live is complex. It's hard at times. At The Story Field, you will find great stories of normal people just like us who will inspire you. Our goal is that you leave encouraged, inspired, and excited to move forward in life. But before we get started, one thing though, if you're listening and you find yourself really hopeless right now, send us an email at hope@thestoryfield.com so we can pray for you. Thanks for joining us today. Let's get started.
Hey, Storyfield. Please welcome Phil Herndon to the show today. Phil, man, I'm excited today. I'm really excited. Thanks for making time.
Man, yeah, Josh, Micah, so glad to be here.
So we needed you as a guest for many reasons, and but the Lord put you on my mind really for an interview about, and we'll get into your story, but I want to just start with this about how people attach to God. What in the world is attachment, Phil? Because I'm, upper 40s, and I've never heard that term or really what that means until just a few years ago, to be honest with you. So what the world is attachment, and why is that important?
It's one of the great things about the internet is it brings things to the surface, and then one of the worst things about the internet is it brings things to the surface.
Yeah.
But bringing attachment to the surface through podcasts and publications, I think, is one of the good things. Attachment really goes all the way back to, now I learned a bunch of words at Southwestern Seminary right there in y'all's state. So I am committed to using every one of them I can think of at all times. And so so one of them was called pre-creation Trinitarianism. That's my favorite one. And so all that means is that God existed in three persons before creation. There is no such thing as time, so to speak, to God, and that Trinity existed with perfect attachment or connection. And so attachment is a big deal, and then doesn't take very long when Scripture, we begin to know, when God marks time with creation, to where He's breathing His image and likeness into humankind through Adam. And so if this being who is love, this God who is love, is in perfect connection, attachment with Himself, one God, three persons, then it has to mean that part of what He breathed into us is this deep, deep need to be in attached relationships, which means I'm with you and you're with me and I know it.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And we're going to dive into that. Okay, that's perfect, Phil. So introduce yourself to our listeners. Give us a little bit of your background, catch us up. You've been a Texas guy a long time, and you moved on to maybe some more greenery, which we're happy for you. So fill us in on some things you've done, you're doing. You get to know you a bit, and then we want to ask you about your story. Like, we want to kind of track this in a little bit of a chronology, and we want to know your story, and then we'll get into some more topics.
Great, sure will. Well, we were, before we started talking about Mississippi, I was actually born in Mississippi. All of my family's from there, both sides. When I was 7, we moved to Metro Atlanta. I tell people I grew up in Marietta, Georgia, long before everyone in the world moved there. That didn't move to the Metroplex, they moved to Metro Atlanta. Grew up there in Marietta, Georgia. What I would call a churchianity family. I don't say that to cast aspersions, but we were a cultural church attending family. And, my dad wasn't out robbing banks and the cover of darkness and no one knew about it, but there was not a really vibrant, and I'll use a word we've used before, there wasn't a vibrant attaching to God relationship. It was deep South cultural, go to church and be good people.
Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday afternoon type of stuff. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Back in the day when it was church training, then training union, and the whole thing. We did the whole cafeteria. And so grew up, and I really, I would have called it fairly unremarkable until I hit the skids. I really struggled in school, not academically as much as the academic performance was a reflection of my internal chaos that I grew up in. Home life was pretty tumultuous, scary, traumatic. I didn't know it. nor did my siblings, but lots of things going on in the home in terms of violence with my mom. She had some uh, had borderline personality disorder. We didn't know what to call
Oh,
that, and so it was just very volatile and scary growing up. But we didn't know any different, and so moved the summer before my senior year. We moved to Moore, Oklahoma,
mm.
outside Oklahoma City, and Tornado Alley, the nexus of
Oh, you're
Tornado
in the
Alley.
middle of it. Yeah, oh,
Dude, it
yeah.
is a magnet.
Oh, yeah.
And graduated high school there. Again, just kind of, I would have said unremarkable, not any trouble. Learned to be a hero child early on, to fix problems at home, to perform well. I didn't perform well in school. Frankly, no one was really paying attention to that. I didn't get in trouble. I kept my nose clean. You know, I was a fairly popular kid. People liked me, parents liked me, and everything must be fine.
Mm.
And so then I went to college in Northeastern Oklahoma State University. Was in a marriage, got married at 19. I
Okay.
don't recommend it. That marriage was not stellar, and I'm not saying this out of a false sense of humility or anyway. That was way, way, way more me than her. Immature, spiritually immature, relationally immature. Had delved off into really three forms of addiction: food, overeating, uh, alcohol, and pornography, and really living in an addictive world that I was keeping secret. I wasn't keeping the food secret because my body was showing it. The others
Mm.
were kept secret. And then that marriage ended. Makes perfect sense looking at the resume. And there I was in a small town in northeastern Oklahoma,
Mm.
25 years old, had been in college for 6 or 7 years, and I had driven trucks and loaded freight. My dad was in the trucking business. And
Mm.
so in my family, both sides of my family, you just go into trucking. And so I
Yeah.
did. But there I was in the latter part of 1985, in excess of 300 pounds, highly addicted, come from a family of morbid obesity as well, used food for comfort, and then found pornography and alcohol. And so really a mess. I had some guys that cared about me intervened on me, and I got sober. And I remember a watershed event in my life. I remember burying my head in a nasty chair in a nasty little trailer house I lived in and telling God, "Hey, I know you're finished with me, so I'll just show myself out," kind of thing.
Oh,
And
wow.
I've never had an egg broken over my head, but I think if I
Yeah.
had one, it felt like the yoke, like of God's grace and Him graciously saying to me in words to the effect of, "Hey, you let me worry about that. That's not your job.
Oh,
If
wow.
I'm through with you or not, that's my job."
Oh,
And
man.
so got hired by that trucking company that my dad worked for, transferred out to Amarillo, Texas. Speaking of green,
Yeah.
Out to
A
Amarillo,
lot of,
Texas.
I hope you liked all those trees. I mean,
Oh my goodness. Well, I liked all three of them. They were great.
yeah.
Uh, and so I started working, was sober,
Mm.
in terms of, back in the AA rooms, they call it plug in the jug. I had plugged the jug.
Mm.
I was not sexually sober, but from food and alcohol, did not really know the depths. And this is where attachment comes into my story,
Okay.
frankly.
And
Did
you're
not
about
know.
20. I mean, you're so 20, you divorced at 25 and then dropped. So sometime in the 25, 26, 27
Yep.
range now.
The
Okay. Out of
the end of
college.
the end
Okay.
of November, before I turned 26,
Okay. Okay.
was my before I turned 25 was when I was intervened on, and
Okay.
the ship began to be righted some. Moved out to Amarillo, was working for the company, met my wife, Sheila. We're in year 36 now, be
Wow.
37 in April, next April. And we began to date. And really, I've told people, it's back to attachment. I did not know attachment from third base. I had no idea how
Yeah.
to attach relationally or emotionally whatsoever. I had my friend Nathan Wagnon over at Eden Project that I know y'all know.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
talks about, done some beautiful work around the knowledge of God and image of God.
Mm.
My folk theology, my churchianity upbringing gave me knowledge and facts about what
Mm.
Scripture said about God. My experience of Him, my internal embodied experience of Him, what we call image of God, was very, very different.
Mm.
And so I had no relational emotional attachment that I experienced with him and therefore other people. And so Sheila's my wife's name. Our dating life, the 3 years we dated, was really tumultuous and scary and really unhealthy. And I've told people, and I really mean this, it sounds funny, I thank God for codependency, because if she had not been sick with codependency, she would have, that would have
Yeah.
been done.
Didn't
And
let that happen so you can work it out.
oh,
Yeah. Oh,
that was
yeah.
her codependency was God's grace to me. And so we really had to fight through some things, and she faithfully stayed. And then I began to experience this recognition that had been present in me for really a long time, as I can remember. I have a memory, speaking of attachment, I have a memory at 4 years old. My mother came to me on a Sunday afternoon and said, "Hey, get ready, we're going to church." I distinctly remember saying, "Well, we already went this morning." And I heard her say, and I don't think she said this, but I heard her say, "Well, we're going to see God." And I went to my closet and looked for the nicest clothes I could find, because I knew somewhere internally that's a big deal. Like, we're going to see him. That's something you probably dress up for. And
Wow.
so I remember that. And then going, well, Mrs. Thompson was at the door. She's not God at all. Like, well, okay, well,
Yeah.
that's not God. And but I had these memories packed away in me around this image of God that had lain dormant for a long time,
Mm.
loving and very paternal, and the language of Scripture being so paternal. I won't leave you or forsake you. I won't leave you as orphans. I'm going to walk alongside you. I'm going to be your advocate, the Holy Spirit. I knew those things. I didn't know what to call them. And I began to experience that God saying, "Hey, you remember that old nasty chair in that trailer house? I haven't forgotten that." And so I knew that I wanted to help people. I knew I was very familiar with trucking. It was very comfortable. It's all I'd grown up with. And I remember saying to Sheila, we had since moved to Conyers, Georgia, outside the east of Atlanta, near my hometown. And I remember saying to her, coming home from church, "I really think I need to pursue something different, and the something different I think is really helping people, ministering to people." And I had no idea what that even meant.
Oh, wow.
Now, I have no idea. I didn't Google it in 1988 or so, but I don't know how I found out. I knew I was from a secular background, like educationally, and I didn't want to go into what's called biblical counseling or pastoral care, both of which I think are great. I
Mm.
wanted to serve, quote unquote, in the marketplace. I wanted a
Oh.
license to do counseling. I don't know how I found this out, but I found out that Southwestern Seminary in Fort Worth had a program that could get a master's degree in education, religious education, which I desperately loved teaching. And I could get a master's in counseling that was LPC compatible for getting a Texas license. So off we went. We packed up. We moved to Fort Worth, Texas from Conyers, Georgia. And I only tell this because how God moves in life. I finished 714th in my high school class out of 900. I only remember that because it's Babe Ruth's home run record. That's the only reason I remember 714. And I finished 714th out of 900, and it took me almost 10 years to complete college.
Mm.
Did not have a stellar academic record, and I finished those 2 degrees at Southwestern with above a 4.0, which no one cares about.
Oh
The
my
only reason I
gosh.
care about it is because getting in a lane, we used to tell guys in a treatment center I helped to run, we used to tell guys, "We want to help you see who God's made you to be so you can do what you're made to do."
Oh, wow.
So I had finally been able to see who God made me to be from that chair in Oklahoma, in that little trailer house, to where, oh, I'm made to do this. And so the GPA was not a product of high intellect. It was a product of, oh, this is what I'm made for.
Mm.
God made me to do it. And so,
What a
but
huge confirmation, really. I mean,
oh my
yeah,
goodness.
for sure.
I remember sitting in class and having the thought, like, man, this is the first time I can remember being in a classroom, and I'm not the one that's confused and lost. Like, this makes perfect sense to me. And some of my classmates were lost, like that. I have never done this before. And so went on to a church staff there in Fort Worth. Loved our time there. It was a church we were part of, and I was a student. Sheila was on staff there. Was the financial assistant there. Loved the people. Loved it. there. While I was in seminary, I met a guy who became a mentor to me. Um, I also had been asked to be a part of a counseling practice while a student, which was a great honor by an adjunct professor. So that little practice combined with the big practice he was running in Dallas to write a Christian-based sexual trauma, sexual addiction track for the
Mm,
hospital, Charter Hospital in Grapevine, Texas.
wow.
So we got to know each other, had an affinity for one another. He's a brilliant writer, theorist. His name is Chip Dodd. And we did the whole, hey, one of these days we need to work together. So in 2005, to fast forward, I left the church staff and we moved here. And we ran together. He owned the treatment center called CPE, Center for Professional Excellence, until he sold in 2000, I believe it was 17. We did that treatment center together, and that's what we did every day. We helped guys reattach to their own identity as God made them, reattach to those that they love, and reattach to God so they could go do what they were made to do. So that's the skinny on the trip.
That's amazing. Yeah, you've been all over too. And that's amazing. Um, oh man. So I just put myself in like a shoes coming in to see you guys because I know you. So now you're kind of coaching essentially the coaches. And tell me first about Tin Man, and then let's get back into like if I'm the guy walking in your office
Mhm.
without much of this, like where are you starting helping me connect with God, connect with others, you know, and knowing my
Right.
true identity and that type of stuff. But how'd you get connected with Tin Man and tell me about Tin Man for a second, and let's get back into the chair, so to speak.
Okay. Yes, and this is a very public story, so I wouldn't dare tell confidential information if it wasn't already public. But a man named Jeff Schulte came to treatment. He was a pastor who had imploded. It had sunk in on him, and he he was in the pit. Came to treatment and did beautifully. We had an 84-day program, 12 weeks, 84-day program, and he fought through that thing. And he's brilliant and tough and resilient, and he was really sick. And through what we did, lots and lots of story work, lots and lots of feeling work, lots and lots of filling in the gaps of, and I'll say this, I think it will help understand how we did it. We would tell guys that came into treatment, we understand that you have a lot of intellect. We treat a lot of physicians, a lot of pastors. You have a lot of intellect. We know you have a lot of morality. And guys would say, like, I'm not very moral. I was doing so and so. Well, you hid it. You had the morality enough to keep it a secret. So, all right, morality and a lot of willpower. So we know these guys were good guys. They were smart guys. They were tough guys. We knew that. And Jeff was one of those. So he did beautifully. And when he came out of treatment, word started spreading. He was here in the Nashville area. Word started spreading about what had happened. And so guys started calling him saying, hey, Jeff, me too. And so Jeff started seeing guys. I say guys, they were seeing men, mostly pastors who were burnt out, keeping secrets, porn addicted, alcohol addicted, you name it. And so he created this company. He was up. It's called Metro Center, kind of the place where you go do all the registration and stuff. He was up at Metro Center in Nashville, and the lady said, "What's the name of your company?" And Jeff, like, I don't know. She goes, "Well, sir, you're going to need a name for your company." So he happened to think that someone had shared with him in treatment the story of the Tin Man, and so Jeff created Tin Man. So a 2-minute version is the Tin Man was a human. His name was Nick Chopper, and he was a woodsman. And he was working along. He fell in love with the girl, and the girl's mom said, "Oh, no, no way are you marrying my daughter? Not happening." And he was lovesick. He was grieving and sad. And so he went to work, and the mom said, went to the wicked witch that we see in the book and the movie. I want you to curse his axe. And so she did. So he's working along and cut off one of his arms. And he went to the tinsmith, replaced my arm, and then both arms and both legs. And finally, what he could not get rid of was his lament, his grief, his sadness over the broken attachment connection with the girl he loved. And so he went to the tinsmith and he said, "I want you to cover this up. I can't stand it." And the tinsmith said, "I think that's a bad idea." And he's like, "Nope, it's a great idea. I can't stand the pain. Cover it up." So he did. And so he gave the Tin Man an oil can, and he said, "You be sure and use this, because if you get caught out in the rain, you're going to be paralyzed. You're going to rust." And when Dorothy and the Scarecrow, the lion hasn't shown up yet, when Dorothy and the Scarecrow come upon the Tin Man, that's what has happened. He has done what men do and has gone to work. He worked and worked and worked and worked. He was not paying attention to that had been covered up, and he froze. And
Oh,
so
wow.
Tin Man exists to help men and women get unfrozen emotionally and relationally.
Wow.
And another young man we treated, pastor we treated, connected with Jeff. His name is Todd Wormers. And then Todd and Jeff began to kind of be in charge, for lack of a better term, of Tin Man. And we've grown since then. So they were in need of an old guy who'd been around a long time that they knew, and they called and said, hey, you think you could help us work with our coaches and develop them, help them in skill training and kind of provide care for them? I said, man, I would love that, and to get to work with those two guys. And so that's the name of the place, and that's what we do based on that character.
That's wonderful. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And people can connect on that and find it online and get the coaches in. Where I'm glad to get behind the scenes with you with them too. That's awesome. And also, I mean, well, you wrote a Bible study with Schulte called Emotions Unveiled, and I think you can get that almost anywhere, right, Phil?
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon. You can go on our
Yeah.
website and get it. We really enjoyed writing that. It's people said through the years, I know that this feelings thing, these emotions are in Scripture, but I don't know how to find it. And so we wrote that Bible study around it's eight core feelings, eight core emotions that we have. And so here's the theological underpinning of the necessity and the privilege we have of feeling these things and giving expression to them in relationship. That's what the Bible study is about.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. And that thing's been it's been moving like this. Obviously it connects. I mean, this stuff is it's so important. And I mean, it's almost like my eyes have been open to just a little bit of sliver of some of this stuff on, it's just not something we grew up in, or at least I did,
Mhm.
not in my context or world. I'm assuming most men and professionals are the same. So, with that, help us to process this through, I mean, as high or low level as you want, like somebody coming in and you're looking at emotions, you're looking at attachment, you're looking at how they're connecting with people, with the Father, with others. I mean, God image stuff. Just
Mhm.
where would you like to encourage somebody, maybe to even get the wheels turning on, whether they want to dig deeper, maybe they want to grab the Bible study, maybe they want to engage with Tin Man, Eden Project, our buddy Chuck. I mean, Nathan, Chuck, and Duke and their stuff is incredible. So
Mhm.
just helps. I just don't know even what to ask to help start the conversation. So just help somebody who doesn't know about any of this really, and they walk in and they just they want to get talking with you. They want to go a little bit deeper and learn some of this. Where do
Yeah.
you even start? I know that's a hard question. It's all over, but
Well, it's hard and it's simple. Not easy, but simple. Everyone that picks up the phone and calls a therapist or a tin man or Eden or wherever, anyone that picks up a phone or sends an email that says, I need help, here's what we know. What they're after is what the Tin Man was after. They have lost heart. Now the symptom may be burnout, addiction, depression, anxiety, melancholia. Uh, who knows? It may be, but they will start listing symptoms. I thought life would be different, or I planted this church and it's a failure, and I must be a failure. Whatever the call may be, what they're saying is, I have become disconnected from heart, and I need to reclaim that. And we will tell them the thing with the Tin Man, he did not lose his heart; he lost track of it. He always had it. The mayor of Oz gave him a clock. He didn't give him a heart. He gave him a reminder that he has one. And so, in the very next scene, by the way, in The Wizard of Oz, the Tin Man's crying his eyes out because his friend Dorothy's going home. And so he gets his heart back, and immediately here come the tears. And so, what has happened to everyone that picks up a phone and calls, they have lost connection with this heart, this internal world that we have where we do relationship. And so the symptoms are a million. So that's where we start. I need to hear what your symptoms are, drinking or anxiety or depression or burnout or whatever it may be. And then we need to start talking about how did you lose track of this language inside of you that you bring out of you to tell the story of where you're hung up. I'll give you an example of that. Your brain only does one thing. All it does is keep you alive. Now that's a big job, but that's all it does. And the first stop to keeping you alive is through protection. So your brain provides protection for you. And there's a part of the brain called the limbic system. Limbic means border. It sits above the brain stem and below the thinking brain cortex. And so it borders both. It's the middle of your brain, the deep part of your brain. And so that's where you carry the emotional impressions of your story, what something was like beyond the content of the details. You can describe how to get to the Grand Canyon. You can describe how much it costs to get in. You can describe the type of rocks that it is. But what you leave the Grand Canyon with is, whew, that's limbic. And so, because our brains are designed to protect us, what we keep implicitly in that part of our brains gets used for protection. So, give a simple example, if a child grows up in a home, he or she is severely neglected, no one pays any attention to them, and everything is up to them, they will develop this idea of scarcity. Things are scarce. And so, in order to protect them, their brains will make sure that they greedily gobble up whatever they can find. It might be food, it might be security, it might be another man, another woman, it may be all kinds of things, but that brain says, I'm going to protect you. And so, notice that, for instance, the most popular examples are soldiers who have PTSD. And so, a soldier can walk into an office and say, for example, hey, our platoon was attacked by helicopters 50 times when I was in Afghanistan in 1991. So if we walked outside with that guy and a Vanderbilt Medical Center helicopter flew over here and that guy jumped into the bushes, here's what we would know. We would know to call it PTSD. That's his symptoms. But what's happening is his limbic brain hears helicopter blades and that thing reacts and says, I've got to protect him. And so he does protection first. When he comes out of the bushes, he goes, oh man, sorry. I know this is Nashville, Tennessee in 2025, but in that moment, it was 1991 in Afghanistan. And so the limbic system is saying, I don't have a clock and I don't have a calendar. So I'm not keeping track of when something happened. I'm keeping track that it did happen. And I'm going to bring this up to protect you come what may. And so the brain doesn't know if we're being attacked by helicopters or if we're being attacked by a bear or if we're being attacked by my friend Josh or Micah saying something mean to me and pushing me away. The limbic brain says, oh, protect, protect, protect. And so people that pick up the phone and call Tin Man or whoever, their brains have been protecting them because it's holding a trauma story in storage in this limbic system. It's called the right brain to bring up to protect them whenever they need it. And so a wife might say, I just can't get to him. He won't share his feelings with me. I know something's going on, but he's shut down because that brain says, do not be vulnerable, stay in protection mode. So we help people move from protection mode into deep attachment.
Hey, y'all. I just want to make an observation. When I see someone going through a legal situation, it seems like there are way too many unknowns. Well, the Allen firm provides legal guidance so that you can make a great decision, come to a resolution, and be at peace. For more information about the Allen firm, visit allenlawfirm.com.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, who doesn't have some of that? I mean, who doesn't react that way or respond
Yes.
that way? Their brain doesn't. So, okay. Um, how do you do that? Like, can you explain a little bit of like some things you've seen that really help people
Mm-hmm.
move toward attachment and toward, you don't have to protect me, that type
Yes.
of thing. And also,
Yes.
does your brain know, just a little side question, does your brain know, like it's not saying, no, that was 7-year-old Josh when that, it just takes me right back there to protect mode.
Mm-hmm.
Really. So it just kind of, I've heard that multiple times. So that's super interesting to me.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have a time clock on like,
Mm-mm.
it's like, no, this happened to you then and boom, you're back in it. Huh.
It's keeping track of things.
Yeah.
in order to protect you. And so when something happened isn't important to the limbic system. It is to the
Okay.
thinking brain, the left brain. It's important to that brain. That's a reason and I'll tell people when I give talks, I'll say, I'm going to bust a myth. And here's the myth. You can't change the past. That's not true because your
Mm.
past lives in your limbic system and you can change your brain
Okay.
through deep attachment. And so if you mean I can't go back and not be in that trailer house, highly addicted, 300
Mm.
pounds, that's true. But I carry forward with me dysfunctional, unhealthy ways of coping with my life through addiction. And so my
Mm.
brain was in a certain way to protect myself. And as I got in deeply attached relationships and I began to heal, it didn't change that content, but I don't look anything like that anymore.
Okay. Okay. That's wild.
And so there's a cheat code, and I tell people this all the time, and it's super clear in scripture. There's a cheat code to attachment, and it's called lament.
Mm.
Sadness. Here's something crazy. Now, Solomon, of course, it's always cracked me up. Ecclesiastes begins with, hey, I'm not going to tell you who I am, but I was king and really rich and wealthy and the smartest guy ever, but I'm not going to tell you it's me. It's like, hey, Solomon, we totally know it's you. I don't know
You're
why
not hiding that from anybody.
I don't know what the big secret is here. Yeah, I see you, Larry. Uh, so Solomon, Kuloeth, however you want to pronounce that, says that something it seems strange to us at first. He writes this poem, a time for this, a time for that, a time for this, a time for that. We look at that poem and go, okay, he's talking about the rhythms of life, and he is talking about rhythms of life. Notice he's talking about things end and it goes another direction. And the implication is, and then it comes back to the other direction again. And so we are in a constant mode of change in life. And when change occurs, we have a natural proclivity toward grief. So then he writes, God has placed eternity in the heart of humankind. And then the next verse says, but you're never going to figure it out. You're not going to go to your left brain, thinking brain. You're never going to figure out how everything works and how everything is put together. It's impossible. You're not going to do it. And so here's what we know. Part of eternity being in our hearts, part of the grief around change, here's what we intuitively know. We may not think about it all the time. Every relationship we have on earth will end painfully. Every one of them. Ultimately, death ends it. My friend Micah moves away. He doesn't want to be my friend. We drift apart. We're different seasons of life. We have a misunderstanding, something, or one of us dies. So we know intuitively that if I love someone, I'm going to lose this. Ultimately, death. But it's going to be painful when it ends. Therefore, if we're not willing to grieve deeply, we will not attach deeply. We'll make sure we don't get real deeply involved in this other person, this other place, this other thing. We grieve nouns, people, places, and things. And so, therefore, if we desire to attach deeply, we have to pay attention to the fact that it ends painfully. If I'm going to reattach to my own identity, for instance, it's going to be painful to pay attention to this story I'm carrying. If I'm going to attach to my wife, one day death will part us. Friends, family, church, all those things are going. So sadness and lament, to walk with someone through the losses of life, to tell the story. And by the way, if you think about the left brain, which is the thinking brain, it's words that start with L, linear, lines, logic, language. So language is in the left brain. So when we pull language from the left brain to tell the story that is living in the right brain, it settles down the nervous system. It brings it out into the open. Now, David's talking about sin when he writes, as Jeff and I write about this in the chapter on guilt. David's talking about sin, but in Psalm 32, David says, when I was silent, my bones wasted away. If you look that up in Hebrew, bones means essence. He means his identity. When I was quiet, when I did not speak out loud about what's going on in my heart and life, my Davidness was eking out of me. My very identity was getting lost. And so as we confess need, as we tell the story out of our left brain, that's sitting in the right brain, it settles down that need we have to hypervigilantly be on alert.
Oh, wow. How do you grieve like deeply in order to like what does that look like? I mean, just acknowledge it and acknowledge that these relationships will end and just feel it. I mean, if you could tell like this stuff is foreign to me a little bit. It's like, how do you do that?
That's a common question.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Now, you two are probably familiar with the what used to be world famous Mesquite Rodeo. So we were in seminary. We're like other seminary students. Our house was about the size of a cracker box. We didn't have much, and we saved up our money to go to the Mesquite Rodeo. So
Oh
here we
yeah.
went. We didn't have any kids yet. We have one son, Luke, and he's married. We have a precious granddaughter now, but his love before he was born. So we went over to the Mesquite Rodeo. When we got home, we realized we had been broken into. We'd been robbed. And so my parents had given me not really a class ring. They knew my struggle kind of to get through school. And just before I graduated, just weeks before this robbery happened or burglary happened, they'd given me a ring, kind of a subtle, I'm not a big jewelry guy, and just a
Yeah.
subtle ring, very beautiful ring. And they had stolen that. They stole some things of value to Sheila. And so we literally walked through that tiny little seminary house and we inventoried what the losses were and told us we intuitively, we didn't do it like therapy. We just walked around and I think she's the one that noticed it first. She's like, I think they took your ring.
Oh wow.
And I remember thinking, so part of that story, I'll just tell part of the story was, my parents really weren't paying a lot of attention to things just growing up, and it was volatile and tumultuous. But we went to a place called County Line Barbecue in Oklahoma City.
Mm,
Oh, you're nodding. That's good barbecue.
yeah.
They
Yeah.
took us to dinner there just weeks before, and when we were visiting, they still lived in Moore. We were visiting, and they gave me that ring before graduation. So it was really meaningful. Sheila's the one. She's like, man, that was such a sweet night, and your parents giving notice to this being a big deal that we're getting done with grad school. You're about to graduate, and but now the symbol, the token they had given me was gone. And so there were things. So we walk around our emotional house like Sheila and I did, that tiny little seminary house, and we inventory what was lost and the story behind it.
Mm,
And so it was painful, but it helped to get to this place of acceptance to say, okay, this is integrated into the bigger story. There were other things that were missing and lost too, and just the sense of violation. And it's really helpful if people are caught in, for instance, into an addiction cycle, that they recognize what this thing, this entity called addiction stole from them. It's violating.
mm,
Part of my work was, what did alcoholism, porn addiction, overeating addiction, what had that cost me in my own life? And the price was pretty steep.
mm.
Unstuck Coaches hates it when movement and progress in a person's life or business is stuck, or frozen, or slowed, or just stopped altogether. Well, we have found a solution. Unstuckcoaches.com. They offer a variety of coaching services to get you or your business moving again. Check out unstuckcoaches.com.
So the process of inventorying and seeing what was lost and the story behind it
Mhm.
just in your life, I mean, that's super helpful.
Yeah,
We just
it
we
really,
don't want to go there though.
no, heck no. No, it hurts. It's painful. And so those feeling words give expression of that story. That is the language that story is hanging onto over in that right brain.
Mm,
And that's the importance of giving the inventory. And, for instance, the way the brain works, we will often accuse teenagers of shutting down. You're shutting down. You better talk to me. You better start talking.
yeah.
My teenager won't talk. And what we finding out is where language lives, about right here, left prefrontal cortex, where language lives. that's getting re-scrambled, rewired in a teenager's brain. And so we will often demand that they talk, and they're looking around in this inventory for words and they can't find them. And so we think they're shutting down. They're actually probably in freeze, fight, flight, freeze. They're probably frozen. They don't know what to say because they can't, that part of the brain where they have access to that language is shut down. So when a grown person, a man or woman, sits across from someone or over a cup of coffee and starts inventorying that story, here's what I hoped to have happened, and as opposed to what did. There's a Lisa Feldman writes beautifully about grief, and she said that our brains are actually a GPS mapping system. We even use the phrase, and this is, I stole this completely from her. It's her example. She says, imagine that you have to get from one end of your house to the other, and it's pitch black and you have no light source. You would know where you are in your house by the pieces of furniture you bumped into. We get orientation by what we bump into. And she says, imagine that you go to bed and someone steals all your furniture. And then you get up and try to make your way through your house. You will be disoriented in your own house because the things you bump into are gone. That's what grief is. And so we even use that phrase like, man, I really miss bumping into her, bumping into him. We even use that phraseology in our brains. And so that grief process is when we go, but when we do find those words, the teenagers can't find. But when we do find those words after our teenagehood is over with, and we start telling the story of our grief and telling the story of our loneliness and telling the story of our anger and the story of our fear, the story of emotional hurt, we're bringing that language over and getting that story outside of us to someone else who holds it with us. And that creates these bonds of attachment.
Oh, wow.
So I got a question, I guess, and I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but you're talking about attachment, and then you're talking about how eventually something's going to happen. Either we pass or the relationship is busted or whatever. And do you think that because if somebody goes through a couple of those instances and they don't realize that that's part of just part of how things go, then they shut down. Then they totally, because they just don't want to do that feeling again, instead of figuring out how to deal with it. I mean, is that like I'm assuming that's probably common because we seem to be in men seem to be in a position to where after a couple of bad things, then we just stop. We just shut down. We're not relational with anybody. We don't want anybody to have our emotions. Is that am I understanding that correctly, I guess?
Sadly, you are.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Micah, we do. We shut that down because there is something in our, we are embodied souls. There's something that says, oh, that hurts. I don't want to do that anymore. So, of course, a hot stovetop, grief, and it really does create this isolated place to where, the word courage, for instance, courage is a gift we receive from dealing with hurt well. I get hurt relationally. Notice, by the way, when we feel emotional hurt, we will say that was a punch in the gut, that was a slap in the face, that was a stab in the back. Those things would literally hurt if they happened. Well, it turns out, long story far shorter, neuroscience people have found out that the part of the brain that processes physical hurt and the part of the brain that processes emotional hurt is the same exact spot.
Wow.
And so Psalm 139 tells us that we're fearfully and wonderfully made, and our euphemisms to describe emotional hurt, we're describing in physical hurt terms because we're wired that way. Therefore, when we experience hurt or loss or loneliness, we don't want to do that anymore. And so, when I use these feeling words to say that to my friend Micah or my friend Josh, when I do that, I just have feelings about it, and we assign the pain to the feelings. The pain is about the experience. And so the feelings describe the experience. And so we guys end up doubling down on the thing making us sicker and pushing us further into isolation. So we think, oh, I don't want to deal with these feelings. Well, yes, that's true. Yes, their feelings are painful. But feelings are the language. Feelings is a language. It's also an internal experience, but the language to untie the trauma so someone can carry it with me.
Mm.
You know, King David, this is also in the Bible, said David in Psalm 109, man, if you've not read that, it's a romp. I mean, he's like, somebody has double crossed this dude, and he is like, God, may his children be fatherless. May he be wiped off the face of the earth. May his kids be, and then he finally gets down to verse 22, and he says, For I am poor and needy, and I am wounded in heart.
Mm.
Like the bottom line here, God, I'm hurting. And he finally gets down to the crux of what's going on. He's been betrayed by people he thought were his friends. And he's hurting like crazy. And he doesn't want to do that anymore. But notice as he uses the language to write it out with someone, he moves to this place of great vulnerability. So courage is I will be vulnerable relationally again. Courage's core word is coronary, heart. So courage means I'll have heart. Jesus said himself in John 16:33, he says, hey, in this world, you're going to have tribulation. The word tribulation there means to be squeezed. In this world, you're going to be squeezed, and it's going to be painful, but take courage. Courage is stay in heart, stay with me, stay present. I've overcome the world. The very next chapter, the entire thing, John 17, is Jesus praying for these guys to stay together. And so he's saying, stay present in your own skin, stay present in your heart, deal with what's going on, and you're going to have one another to do it with.
So instead of retreating, isolating from people, like in that situation, like what Mike is saying, after you're tired of this, like you're just tired of, then the courageous move is to keep staying with it, you know,
Mhm.
stay in heart and keep expressing those, emotions, I guess the feelings, right? Because it's about the experience. You said pain's about the experience, not about the feeling. So just keep talking about it. I mean, is that a healthy way to deal with? I mean,
Yes. And there are ways of doing it that's not quote unquote just talking about it. I'll give
yeah,
you an
yeah.
example. I will tell guys, and some of the guys I work with have a lot of notoriety in their kingdom world, wherever they're living. And I will say to them, that's fantastic. Like, I'm not going to do a celebrity bashing here. I love that you are well known or whatever. That's your public facing guy. That's great.
Yeah.
And behind that guy, there is a dad, a husband, a neighbor, a whatever. But at the back of that line, there is an SON. And if you don't deal with him,
Mm,
then the rest of these guys are all going to be affected by every domino falls. So you're going to
mm,
have a false role facing out here to the public. And so at the back of that line, the core of every Josh and every Micah and every Phil, there is a son
yeah.
who has a story. That doesn't mean blaming parents for things. It means naming the story with those feelings. And so as we do that, we're able to more connect. If you read John 14 through 16, almost every word is about the work of the Holy Spirit when Jesus goes to be with the Father.
Mm,
To notice the parental language in those three chapters.
mm,
I'll not leave you as orphans. I'm going to advocate for you. I'm going to walk alongside you. I'm going to show you what's right and wrong. I'm going to help you have boundaries. I'm going to keep you between the white lines. Like Jesus is
mm,
talking in abject parental language. And so as we tell that story, we we tell that story being very mindful of the son back there these things happened with.
yeah.
And so
That's
again, that's not to blame anyone. That's to say, here's the story. Here's what happened.
yeah. Yeah, I just finished reading I don't know how new it is. It may be pretty new. John Eldridge's Fathered by God.
Yes.
That was pretty cool. I mean, it brought a lot of that, like
Yes.
that was, yeah. Um, we only have about 10 more minutes or so, Phil. I feel like we could just keep peppering you all day long. It's so helpful. But can we talk about uh emotions real quick? The 8 or 9 core emotions that you guys talk about a lot. You've done a lot of work with Chip Dodd on, and he wrote a book called A Voice of the Heart that you were involved in afterwards. And, so just a lot of that. So, um, us men particularly, and I've worked with Chuck and Duke and Nathan enough to learn how to do a little bit of the check-in and that type of thing. But like, can you explain just a helpful tip for guys and to be able to name their emotions, those 8 or 9 core emotions, and then just get us down the road a step, you know,
Hmm.
just help us on this.
Some of the most helpful things, I have a visual aid, not on purpose. It just happens to be here. This thing right here, this is just a laminated piece of paper that I
Okay.
keep on every desk I have. And it's just a hand. We've had a lot of guys that go home from treatment. We had treatments and they lived in rural parts of the country or places like that. And I would say, guys, laminate these 8 words, laminate a piece of paper, throw it on a boardroom table or in a floor with a circle of chairs and just check in about these feelings. What's the reason for that? Well, think about it in terms of a transport system. We have this internal system in our limbic brain in our hearts, like the Tin Man. We have a storyboard in there, and the storyboard has a lot of painful things and a lot of great things in it for a lot of us. But where we get stuck, back to the brain being in hypervigilance, is the part of the story that gets lodged up there and begins to function as a way to protect us. And we don't get close to anyone and we become disconnected from God and even ourselves. And so look at these 8 words. These 8 words, remember the old cartoons down in the mines where these little cars were in like a little tiny little train? Think about there are 8 cars and they're carrying the story like a little coal car. And that's the carrier of the story from inside me out to other people that they carry with me. And when what is one of the most precious promises of God? I'm with you. I will not leave you. I will not forsake you. The word leave there in the Old Testament means I will not drop you. And forsake means I won't leave you aside. I won't abandon you. I won't put you down and go find something better to do. And so even that promise is speaking to that story that we live with that like, oh, wait, you're going to drop me. My image of you is you're going to drop me or just go find someone more important than me. So God makes that promise over and over and over. So when we sit in a circle or across from a cup of coffee and we have these 8 words in front of us, these are the 8 words that bring that story out. They're the transport system that tell the guts of the story that's going on.
Let's so people may not know the 8 words or didn't get a visual on it. What are the 8? And then how do we say them in a way that helps tell the story and transport things to
I'll
people we're
do a
talking to?
I'll do a super quick like definition, I guess you would say, about what they are.
Okay.
So the first one that everybody, a lot of church guys run from is a word called anger.
Yeah.
Here's what anger is. All anger is a feeling that lets me know that I care and what I care about.
Mm,
That's it. Like if I care about, like I know, and fair soccer fans out there, that's fantastic. I'm not one. I don't know anything about soccer.
mm,
So when I hear a score, Manchester versus Liverpool or
mm.
whatever, and Liverpool has won, I don't feel angry at all.
Yeah.
I got no investment in that. Right.
That makes
So
sense.
now, when the Georgia Bulldogs lose, I'm pretty angry about that, like 2 weeks ago, because I care. So that's, on a trivial note, but think
Mm,
about the people, places, and things we care about. Anger lets me know that I care and what it is I care about and what I desire to change. Doesn't mean I'm going to get it. It means I want it.
okay.
That's anger. And then hurt, we talked about hurt earlier. Hurt just simply means I've been relationally wounded, and we often use physical woundedness to describe that.
Mm,
Hurt just means I'm in a relationship like David in Psalm 109, and I have received woundedness from that relationship. Lonely is just a feeling that lets me know I'm made for relationship and I desire intimacy. I
mm,
want to be known. That one, you think about the movie Castaway,
mm.
and I been in Tennessee 20 years, love Tennessee. We talked earlier, like who in the world would risk life and limb to leave a perfect paradise, tropical paradise, to get back to Memphis? That sounds
Yeah.
absolutely insane.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound insane to us in that movie Castaway because we know that Tom Hanks's character, the people he loved, were in Memphis. And so
Mm.
we go, oh, environment and all this stuff, the difference between those two places, but like not when the people you live in one of those places. You're going to fight like crazy to get back there because he was lonely.
Yeah, but lonely may not be like there's no one like physically near you. It's just like there's no intimacy there. Or like,
For sure.
okay, that makes sense.
Like feeling lonely in a room full of people.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Like, I was, you mentioned I lived a lot of places, and every new school I went to, there were big schools. We lived in metro areas, but man, I was lonely as I could be.
Yeah,
So
nobody knew you. Yeah.
then sadness again is the feeling of attachment. Sadness is how I honor loss. I honor loss through what I had that I won't have again. I honor loss through I never had it in the first place. Like I love my dad and I miss him, but the bulk of my grief around him is that what we didn't have, I wish we would have had.
Mm.
Feel
Yeah.
sad.
Yep.
Then fear is that feeling that lets us know we could be in danger. There's a real myth out there in the church that faith and fear can't coexist. Like, well, I don't need faith if I don't have any fear. If Micah says, "Hey Phil, I want you to trust me, man. Just put all your trust in me. I want you to walk over here and touch my shoulder." Like, we're on a concrete slab, okay?
Yeah.
So I'll walk over and touch his shoulder. But if I'm standing across the room from Micah and he says, "I want you to look down," I look down and there's a 500-foot canyon below me, and the wood is so thin I can see through it. He's like, "Oh no, man, this is hill country wood. It'll hold you. I promise. Walk on over here and touch me on the shoulder." Then I need faith because I'm real
Yeah.
scared.
Yeah.
And so that's when I know I trust Micah. Well, I walk across what looks like really dangerous, but he's telling me to have faith in him and I trust him, so I'll walk across it.
Yeah.
That's when we need faith. So fear leads to discernment. Like the old adage, who in the world wants to fly with a fearless pilot?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
pilot announces, "I don't check this plane out for nothing. I ain't afraid." And that's insane. And so fear leads to, like, every pastor that says don't ever feel fear has studied his tail off that week because he's afraid he'll say something inaccurate. And that's inaccurate.
Yeah.
They don't feel fear. Then shame, healthy shame, or what we will call being unashamed of humanness, just simply means I got limitations and I need a lot of help. And guilt, obviously, like, man, I have caused harm, I've sinned, I've missed the mark, and I know I'm capable of that. And I have this feeling of guilt where I need to make restitution for what I've done and make amends. And then last is gladness. Super quick about gladness. Gladness, we need to understand what it isn't in order to understand what it is. Gladness is not a reward. Gladness is not a goal. Gladness is a result of having done the other 7 feelings well. Guys that have been in sports, if you're a baseball or football player, you want to end that game with a dirty uniform. Basketball players, volleyball players, they want to be wringing wet with sweat because they want to know they've been in the game. That's what gladness is. Gladness is a dirty uniform. I've been in the game. I felt these feelings. I'm glad to be present in my own skin and to be present with you.
Oh, that's good.
So that's a little
So
primer on how those work.
how do those come out in a healthy way between, like, if Mike and I are talking, I'd just be like, man, today I feel anger and I'm, kind of scared of this, and that helps me and him in our relationship.
Yes, because he is seeing into you. Intimacy is into me see. We start most everything we do at 10 Man, informal meetings, whatever, we start with a check-in. It can be awkward at first, but just a quick check. "Hey man, tell me how you're doing today." And we will say, "Well, I feel some fear about being on a podcast today. I'm glad I'm going to be doing that. And I feel lonely because she learned how to fight," or whatever it may be. And then another guy checks in, and it becomes just the way you talk. And what happens is the neural pathways in your brain actually change to where you're experiencing a deeper level of intimacy and relationship, therefore a deeper attachment and connection to your own identity and the people you care about through
That's
reps.
fascinating. Doesn't seem complicated, but like I said, it's simple, but it's just gotta do it.
It's just so scary to do it.
I know, man. Oh, um, couple minutes. What would you say a really a life message of yours is, and or like an encouragement for people? Like, you want to leave them with just like, here's my message to you,
Mhm.
and here's some encouragement.
Yes. Well, thank you for giving the opportunity. And it's not canned. We didn't talk about this before.
No, not at all. I'm totally surprising you on this one.
That's not on the tee. So I just want listeners to know this is what I really, really heartfelt about this. I really and truly want to help men, is mainly who I work with, and women, of course. I want people to recognize that the God of the universe existed in where we started, does exist in a perfect attached union a union of love, and he breathed that into us, his image and his likeness. So the image has not been marred, but the likeness certainly has. And so we are hardwired by his own breath into us for connection and attachment. And he has so made the brain and so made the heart that these 8 core words are the vehicle or the language of me drawing closer with deeper attachment to people that I love. That therefore we can help each other see who we're made to be and help each other flourish in what we're made to do.
That's fascinating. Thank you so much, Phil. Man, how do people connect with you in a good way if they have some questions or want to follow up or want to talk to Tin Man or any of that good stuff, and or
Yes.
get a copy of the Bible study, which they can get online? But
tinman.org is the website. All kinds of resources on there, by the way. Always feel free to email me. Super simple. It's Phil, Phil, at tinman.life. And then on the website, just click on the resources tab. There's some free downloads and you can buy the Bible study there and those other things too. I'd love to help.
thank you so much. Loved it today, Phil. Thanks for making time. Super helpful. We can't wait to keep following you and watching all the cool things you're doing. So thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you for joining us on this latest edition to the Storyfield podcast. We hope that you have been challenged, inspired, and ready to take that next step, whatever that is. If you know someone with an amazing story that needs to be heard, send us an email at info@thestoryfield.com. Have a fantastic day, and we can't wait for you to join us on the next episode of The Storyfield.